Welcome, everybody, to the Synthplex 2022 podcast. My name is Florentino Buenaventura. I'm the host of the show, and this show is all about cool gear in the synth and electronic music realm. And we've got an iconic, and I don't even understand, I'm understating that. This man changed music with the piece of gear that he started off with. This is Roger Linn, the inventor of Linn drums, and if we wouldn't, without him, we wouldn't have hip hop, we wouldn't have electronic music, because he really defined what a drum machine was supposed to be. Roger, thank you. Welcome to the podcast.
Well, after that introduction, I must say thank you. It's very kind of you.
Well, hey, man, I've been a fan. The first record I produced used a Linn drum because I was doing dance music back in the 80s. Mm-hmm. So, and you are a legend here. Let's kind of start it off. Are you a musician? Did you create your first piece because you wanted a drummer?
Yeah, I would say that's true. I mean, I also wanted to find some way of making a living. But yes, I was a songwriter and a guitar player, and I'd make my demo recordings at home, and drums were always the hardest thing to play. And so I also was a nerd, and I had an early computer, and so I wrote some programs on it, and they just kept getting better. And eventually I made a prototype of a programmable drum machine, and people said, "Can I have one?" I said, No, you don't understand. I'm really a musician. And they say, yeah. Can I have one? And so I decided that it was a better path for me, and I was more talented at making products. And so I started making music products. That's basically it.
That is awesome. Was your first drum machine, was it that you tried out, was that the Roland, or what was it that you said you...
Well, it was it used a computer at the time that was based on something called a S100 bus, and I hooked it up to at first I hooked it up to a drum generator circuit board from a Roland drum machine.
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, and then I had the program, and it would just send out electrical impulses and say, play bass drum, play snare drum, play bass drum, stuff like that.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, the thing I remember the most was your drum sounded real to everybody, whereas the other manufacturers, they sounded synthetic, which is nice. Yeah. It had its own tone, obviously became iconic in its own right, but your stuff, if you wanted that punch, that hit, especially for dance music, which I produced, you needed to have a Linn drum or you weren't in the business.
Well, it was this era when sampling was starting to appear, and then everyone was trying to make synthesis as close to real sounds, and there's nothing more real than the real thing. So it really was very popular to a lot of people.
Yeah.
The idea of, since it was very expensive to get enough memory into a device to store long sounds, drums are perfect. I just stored one sample of a bass drum, one of a snare drum, one of a hi-hat, and a few other drums, and it was at least relatively expensive at only $5,000 in 1979.
Well, it's funny. There's an old story that one of the first NAMM shows that you showcased at, you had buttons that had a drummer with like
yes,
like the Ghostbusters sign.
Yeah.
Bold man making bold gear, though. That's pretty awesome.
Well, but interesting distinction though is it didn't have you're talking about sort of an international no entry sign with a circle with a slash through it.
Yeah.
It wasn't of a silhouette of a drummer. It was a silhouette of a drum set, because the idea was this is just another piece of gear for drummers to use.
Okay. I don't know if they saw it like that, but it's kind of funny. I heard that story from a couple of players in the interviews before. But so you started off obviously with the drum machine, but you kind of moved into all different areas. Tell us a bit about the other gear that you've invented along the way, and you've got a very interesting one now called Strument. A Linnstrument.
Linnstrument, yes.
Linnstrument. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I can't read sideways. I'm sorry. I'm looking right at it, guys.
Reading sideways is definitely hard. Yeah, I made a few different products. As you know, I made the MPC drum machines with a Kai.
Yeah.
I made a number of different things, but of notable ones. I don't want to bore anybody. I made the adrenaline processor for guitar that brought a lot of the rhythmic filtering effects of modular synthesizers into a low-cost guitar pedal. And then now what I'm doing is making this thing called Linnstrument. And what it basically is, it's sort of what I would call an expressive alternative to the MIDI keyboard for performing electronics. MIDI keyboards are great, but the problem is they have two things they can do. They can turn the sound on and they can turn the sound off.
Yeah.
And the other things like a pitch bend wheel or the mod wheel don't really work very well if you compare it to the gestures of a guitarist or a violinist or a cellist or a sax player. And so what the Linnstrument does is it's basically a large pressure-sensitive polyphonic multi-touch surface optimized for music performance. So its surface it has a number of pads on it, small pads, and if you press one, it recognizes the pressure of your finger or velocity, like a keyboard. But also, if you slide your finger left and right, it pitch change, like vibrato or pitch bends and such. And if you move your finger forward and backward, it does another set of changes, usually timbral changes. Like, for example, if you're picking a guitar near the bridge or near the neck, it has a different timbre. And so this gives you real-time performance control of volume, of loudness, of pitch, and of timbre, which we are all used to in acoustic instruments, but people who play MIDI piano keyboards, they don't have this. It just everything becomes sort of a piano sound, and my argument is that it's turned a lot of electronic music into background music. Background for singers, because there are no more solos in electronic music records, popular records. Background for dance, background for picture. But there are very few artists who people would who perform it with electronics, who people would pay and sit down in a concert to watch. The artist that they think embodies greatness, and I'm hoping to change that.
Well, you've been a man who's changed the world, really, because music is the soundtrack that powers the world. You changed the face of music with what you've invented, and I'm not just saying that. I'm a big fan of of your genius for gear making.
Thank you.
And I'm looking forward to the Linnstrument. I didn't even look at it that time. I remembered it because you told it. I'm looking forward to seeing what you do with this, and we'll do what we can, because we know a few people. We'll see if we can't get it into folks' hands. What's the retail price of the Linnstrument?
$1,500 for the large model, $1,100 for the small model. The large model has 200 notepads. The small model, which is 5 octaves, because they're overlapping rows of notes, and then the small one has 128 pads, which is basically a 4-octave range. And I've sold 4,000 so far. So they're not unpopular, considering that the original drum machine, the LM1 that I made, sold only 500, and the second drum machine I sold, the Linnstrument, had sold 5,000. So I'm already at 4,000 with this. And to me, it's the next big thing. Or as someone put it to me, they said, Roger, back in the 80s, some people would say that the drum machines you make removed all the soul and expression and feeling from music. And now with this Linnstrument, you're trying to put it back. Are you atoning for your sins? And I said, yes, I think I am. Yeah.
Oh, I don't know about that. You made a lot of booty shake on the dance floor.
I made booty shake, that's true, yeah.
Well, sir, last question. What are some of the other things that you're either planning, if you can announce that, or what do you see for the future of electronic music? Almost even a broader question.
Regarding things I'm planning to visit Hawaii over Thanksgiving, and that's something I'm very excited about. Kauai.
Kauai. I just went to Maui, so that's why I'm asking.
There you go. That's where you got your tan. Yeah. And what was the second question?
Oh, the second question is, what's the meaning of life? No, I'm just joking. Kind of though. It's like, where do you see this industry going? We're here at Synthplex. The show has been dynamic. We kicked off yesterday with the Keith Emerson tribute. Jordan Rudess got up there and played. I'm surprised or maybe Jordan already passed one of these. But
he does,
and actually, before that question, I'm sorry, off the top of my head.
But I can tell you where I see things going. Electronics and computers, they're just the next step in technology. But earlier technological revolutions were strings, tubes, frets, drum heads. It's every time there's a new technology that comes along, it affects art in some way, and that's what's happening now. I think we all make the music the machines want us to make, and so if somebody comes along with a little wooden body with 4 strings on it and a neck too small to play, then we make music that works for that instrument. And now with electronics, it enables new things, and so it's changed music quite a bit. I think you could argue in the past 40 years, and now it's changing more, and so new technological advances like what I'm doing with Linnstrument, or some of the other similar expressive instruments like the Continuum, or the Rolly Seaboard, or the sound plane from Madrona Labs. These are all instruments that are trying to add expression back in, so it expands the palette of the musician, so he's no longer limited to just turning sounds on and off.
Awesome. Well, sir, I appreciate this time. I know you're going to have a busy show. We're just starting off. This is right and early in the morning as we get the attendees coming in. I know you're going to have a phenomenal show, and I look forward to more from Roger Linn.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.